Dini pache go to ya yureve. Dua. That's all. Okay, so dampo dampo nga chila lavgin dini inji ke la lavgin. So dampo de penadata zambuling la ma dang dunga mangbo yore de ma yape ge jaka mambo yore yang di samlo tangne samla penadadung de jambe sim dang tangyom nangla neya tangyom nangla neya teskale kapo yore tangyom nangla neya kapore de Blackbardu pena Israel dang Palestine gi bardu dang pena Ukraine dang Russia de toga mak togero ala dini garsi di gi korla nyomong pa jungna dini nune de jamba tesa chea jam dang ninje gomya gi tapsi mixa che yorebe yang penai dina de mitsama yang jamba dang de tangyom gomba ki tapsi gare yore kinsonge dampo maybe dampo nga NGK logi so the first question that we have here, it says, it seems very difficult to maintain love and equanimity when thinking about the current wars in the world, including those between Israel and Palestine and Ukraine and Russia. What are some methods or practices that can help us counter negative affliction and move towards love and understanding for all? Kinsonge.
Da so da chetan de sanin je ko yesalen da de pache dan de ni le gomji che yuju maria
la
tenjin misar
mare penanga so samlo tangni chichina flapar de sapote yo marwa yini ang kongso chichina pena kongso chori rawo yona til trimendo yini ang chichina kongso semla chori yona Dini yang pena de sangma la jampa dang ningje gonya tes kapo drawo chagi yore. Yini yang chok sangma yang de kongso denda chori meba la dang jamdang ningje gonya ki digi netso samlo tangne gande gom go gre gande jang go gre. Duban garsi or ngarang ke konga ke yapo ko gre dini di kong yang sopo Rinpoche la ngarangi la no di la kamendo pena ngarangi kecha de chi yabo ko ma kona teni rumang kong la chirang la jogre diba yeah so dampo de data zamboling la mambo yorwala dini tata jam dang ningji gonya dang flakpar du sim tang nyom nang la neya tes kable kapo yore pena flakpar du de tata Israel dang Palestine gi korla samlo tangne yang na Ukraine dang Russia gi korla samlo tangne dini mixa gi tap gare yore pena ngacho garsi digi korla nyom momba chena dini de jamba cheya jamba gomya dang pena chori meba nanga neya ki tap mixa gare yore gande chego gare kinsonge
ha kosota ha kos nga la rewas
rela
de chetan ko sambata ninje zojete gomno yore wa ko tena gomno che yore ko gomno mambo yore yena ya dati thola misal zena ti labar che yuju mari tindo yena ya da ko samba da ninje da tanhyong go sekko tu ya hyeje to yore da 간리 졸을 시당 좀빈 주바설 공정도 서로는 이 시당 단에 시 노착 제사를 시당 그 제사 열면 되니 시당 라야 단에 이 노착 제사 요 말이야 디값스니 나서 남바 그 돈이 시나 되니 냠니스 식 거가 야 휴리 되는
So he says that action. So there are many methods for generating love and practicing or meditating on love and compassion, and the methods in this circumstance don't change. They're the same methods, but actually it's a really kind of precious opportunity in which to practice generating love, compassion, and equanimity, especially if there's some kind of feeling of alliance with one side and anger towards the other, because if we don't have situations that cause us to become angry, for instance, then we don't have an opportunity to practice patience. So whenever there is a strong mind of reactivity that arises, that's a perfect opportunity to practice patience. Especially in a situation where we see that the mind is reacting with strong, attachment on the one side and aversion or anger on the other. So we need these circumstances. These are like perfect circumstances in which to practice. So it's really, it's not so much that there are different methods, so much as it is a matter of really recognizing the opportunity, that it's actually a really great opportunity for practice.
Tini teso tes manyo na tra nyon log mare sanjur teso tane teso mambo manyo chadam musam misal ro ne tini sani je gongol re tini nga sanjok sem ja che ari tini jonda tes tep sadu tini teso tindon tini sanjok sem gom ne ya ba re te so jonda bi da tambo chungchong ni zi gong do chungchong ni log jans chon ne tini ja che zi go no ba tin na wi cha de ores.
So he said, Dharma practice is actually similar to learning a physical skill, or like a lujong like a learning a like an athletic skill, for instance, because they both take training, and also training that acknowledges like what your capacity is currently at, and then stretching a little bit beyond that capacity, and then taking practicing or training at that level, and then stretching again when it's the appropriate time. So for instance, when we our bodhicitta is not very strong, when it's just developing, then we have to nurture that bodhicitta and also give ourselves conditions that help to strengthen it. So for instance, it may be that watching the news, or really focusing or hearing too much information about what's going on might excite the feelings of affliction before our bodhicitta is really developed enough to be able to bring that onto the path. So then we, so when we practice love and compassion, and we maybe limit the intake of, say, for instance, media or news around the issue. And then when our bodhicitta becomes more developed, then maybe we expose ourselves to a little bit more, media or news. And then as like our capacity becomes more capable of, taking that in, or we're able to hold it with our practice, then we can expose, ourselves to more and more. But so in this way we train, we first our bodhicitta is small, and then it develops, with training and the proper conditions to become more and more expansive.
Tene lobjong ke nyalni chembo ye chalrewa sanjok ke senda toni ke tawa tene ngak nyalni yapo yo chate tene nuzi chama ko shedang zome yinandra tene no cha je se ke yore yinandra non na dra gang yin ya tene ko tel phimba mes nuwa la chin yolo ma jasen la ne nuzi tamji rin chin ter dang chong ze shen dong a te ka sa tene chen na phin thong ma se no ba ma 더우드 ngoma sanjok sen yabo yo chadi zonte tene dara yeslen zen tinge nenga ton toga mare te ninje chechen ro korwa ning injong chechen ro 그래서
So then as our training really advances, then, whatever, if like our bodhicitta becomes really strong, our wisdom, our understanding of emptiness becomes more developed. And eventually we get to the point where no matter what the affliction, it can't, or no matter what the circumstance, it's something that would ordinarily cause us to give rise to affliction, that it doesn't create any harm. It only actually deepens our practice and can bring benefit. So something that maybe would otherwise cause us to become very angry, or objects that would ordinarily cause us to give rise to desire, that these circumstances then just become fuel for the practice when we're really stable in our bodhicitta and our realization of emptiness. So then it really becomes like it says in the bodhisattva practices, 37 bodhisattva practices, all those who do harm are like a precious treasure. So in that way, if we have good bodhicitta, if we have really strong compassion, then, for instance, something that would have been maybe really, that would be very provoking to us in the past, like say, for instance, this exposure, to the situation of these really, on the news or what have you, that actually it would only become a cause for our compassion to become stronger. So whatever the circumstance, it just causes compassion to increase, and it causes renunciation towards samsara to increase. Okay, so then we have the next question, which is, in his teaching this morning, Rinpoche mentioned the difference between consciousness and wisdom. Can you please elaborate? So Dering Rinpoche ge pena namshi tenda nijin yona nijin yona namshi re teni nime yena yishi re sung yorwa teni digi korla tesa mangsa sung ro nang.
남시 세대 단 지바 쇼 되는 가서 다 담보가 세대 신 세대 작담모 소망 보지 않을 것으로 가서 니들 테이크로 봐도 담보가 시다라 신조스 담보가 시다라 신조 세대 담보가 들이 신 세요로 어때 들이 차선데 작담모 소망 보다 뒤니공 들이 요거하리 어때 인디들 남시 세쇼사로 왔다 될때는 그거한테 참고 그거로 그거동안 전소 이제 다시 한번 시당 친구이나 이제 다녀반도 다 영ten 좋아해 좋. 네, 좀 뭐지 다 송송 영문에서 때는 어떻게 송송한테 어떻게 돼. 그래서 영문에서 님 보송 송하는 거지 다. 얘나 반도 송송. 어떤 좀 다제 시당 친구이냐 봐지 안 정도 다제 어떤 나지 다제 이러와 어떤 참마다 만 춘도 교사대. 니지티 춘도 교라. 돈다 지나다데 니지 대체당 가랑 좋다.天사리 말에 세제 때는 용표로 말에 세제 때는 세미네로 만통 와지. 될 때는 데 만춘도 교로 어떤 니지.
맞아요. So what Rinpoche was saying, he was making this distinction, in that when there is the grasping of duality, then that experience of dualistic grasping is consciousness, the consciousness of sentient beings. And when there's no grasping of duality, when there's instead the wisdom of non-duality, then that is wisdom. So it really is based on fixation. So first, if there is the concept of self, or the thought of I, And then from this, we have the mind, it splits into, attachment and aversion. So first there's the thought of I, and then once there's the concept of I, then there comes the perception of others. And then from that basic duality, then we have all of the mind of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, the three poisons. And then based on that, or due to that, this is what causes beings to wander in the endless suffering, the ocean of samsara. And so this is really what produces the 6 realms of sentient beings, which are a product of the different afflictive emotions. And so as Rinpoche also mentioned, the practice of the 7 branches, each of the 7 branches is an antidote to the different afflictive emotions. And so in the same way, so the afflictive emotions creating are the cause of the different realms. So say, for instance, because of anger, then there is, beings take birth in the hell realms. And then through applying the antidote, like for instance, in the example of the 7 branches, the antidote of confession, the branch of confession, purifies the afflictive emotion of anger. But so it is. This is how delusion functions. Delusion is based primarily, to self-grasping, and then when there's self-grasping, there's dualistic grasping. So the fixation to duality or concepts of duality, which is ignorance, and this is a product of not recognizing the true nature, not realizing the true nature of mind. And as long as there is not that recognition, then the experience is that of delusion and suffering.
Then Sina China Yeda draws, Demo China to draw draws.
Me serna.
Sina Yeda, or you're not draws there, because the other Demo China to draw draws. What in Naja China, Chando China, Lami draws. Then Naja Chin, Lai draws. What in Matata draw wings, what in Matata Tarandoya draw 2 days. Draw the combat down in Wrong as Regina. Yan draw my top in Kogira draws. What can do what that and do that thing as the Nizi spit Tamboji or Nizi Tapa thing as a Tamboji. What is Nizi Tapa is a Tamboyora? The combat the Androya combat down Shirwa. Draws and down Shirwa. Shatin to Chandra is based on the Shadan Chimboson, take on the intrusion on it, take part the intrusion to cheese on it. She don't see the children wrote today. Ya never told the Toya Pecale Capolido. What they can do that they in it. Then I'm here on true sondu. What it? No more talk. Mass and under what that to do. Then do what I trope to do. Chandra was
So somebody who's very angry, so it takes, for instance, like seeing somebody that one perceives as an enemy, and then that fierce mind of anger arises. And so, as Milarepa says, each of the afflictive emotions are like the shackles that bind us to the realms, different realms of cyclic existence. So if somebody has a strong anger, then that is becomes a shackle that binds them or brings them down into the hell realms. It is desire that shackles one to the human realm. It is greed or miserliness that shackles one to the realm of hungry ghosts. It's ignorance or mental darkness that shackles one to the animal realm, and jealousy that binds one to the realms of demigods, and pride that binds one to the realm of the gods. And so the meaning of like shackle here is that as long as we are imprisoned or shackled by the afflictive emotions, we can't get free. We are bound. And so the substance of that shackle or that rope that binds us is that mind of dualistic grasping. So it's like, as if we are tightly bound and can't get free. And so we can see how this functions with the afflictive emotions. For instance, if we have anger, and then the more that we get caught in that cycle of anger, and the stronger the anger becomes, and the more difficult it becomes to see our true nature. And so and that's because as long as the mind of afflictive emotion is present, we're caught in consciousness, the limited mind of consciousness, where we're experiencing the delusion of sentient beings, which perpetuates the 6 realms of samsara. Sanjay is it? Okay.
Sanjay is it. Nizi sanson da ten. Da ni den da de jiba zo den nizi ti yor wa te pa sanson na. De so nyamne ti ye ti ya ji hong de Sanjay is. Me da Sanjay tala sa.
So as it says in the prayer of Kuntuzangpo, or the prayer of Samantabhadra, realizing this, you are a Buddha. Not realizing this, you are being wandering in samsara. So the realization of the one's own mind, which is the unborn true nature of awareness, which is the emptiness of Dharmakaya, Once that occurs, then the dualistic fixation is fully purified. So when dualistic fixation is cleared away, then the result is what has always been there, which is the primordial awareness or wisdom. And so, and there is no, when the obscurations are fully cleared away, then there is no longer the delusion of dualistic grasping. So as Jetsa Milarepa said, he said, I do not, oh, no, de kakare, nang kare de dampo mila, nang
jiwa yi chen nam xian de, ma thọ thuyền ne ma rei de, le nyong mong kun ji xi sai.
So as Milarepa said, when this primordial, unborn primordial awareness within is not realized or is not understood, then it manifests as ignorance. It becomes the consciousness of ignorance that is the source or perpetuates karma and the afflictive emotions. So when we're operating from the ignorance of consciousness, limited consciousness, then there is the constant accumulation of karma through the afflictive emotions. If it is realized, then it is the intrinsic or the self-arisen primordial awareness from which all the wholesome qualities arise, or all of the enlightened qualities issue forth. And so in this independence upon that, if we see the true nature of the mind, then that is wisdom. Not seeing it, then it is dualistic, the dualistic fixation of consciousness. So Milarepa also said, I do not see consciousness, I only see wisdom, I only see primordial awareness, and I don't see sentient beings, I only see Buddhas. Likewise, Lord Jigten Sumgön has said that the individual who has true love and compassion sees all sentient beings as their own parents, their own mothers and fathers. And so there's no concept of like enemies or friends, and there's no objects for giving rise to attachment and aversion. And so therefore all beings and all situations and experiences become a companion to practice. So if there is the purification of the two de Milarepa Pasang Rinpoche de Dibni Dagni. Okay, Milarepa also said, if the two obscurations, so the two obscurations being the obscurations of afflictive emotions and the cognitive obscurations are purified, and the two types of selfhood, the selfhood of the individual and the selfhood of phenomena, are purified, then wisdom arises, or one realizes primordial wisdom, then this is the true meaning, or this is what I ascribe the name of Buddha to. This is really the true meaning of Buddha. So then the next question is, and then also in his teaching this morning, Rinpoche mentioned that devotion to the Guru leads to realizing the single ground. Can you please explain this in more detail? So Rinpoche Hidiring Yang Garci Lama Lamugu Yona Dini Ji Che Di Ji Pena Deshig Ningbo Ji Yorwala Ji Di Ji Rawa Ji Che Yore Ji Che Deshig Ningbo Ji Pena Ji Lam Drebo Ji Che Yoba Rawa Dini Ji Mugu Yona Dini Ji Che Yemba de Ji Tawa talk to Gre Dini digi korla te samang sa sung rom nang. Jichiba. Jichiba. Lasso. Yeah.
제단 대행님 보존이라. 대행님 보존이 대고 산제카. 심지 탐지라고 보존이다. 산제도 심지 탐지라고 보존이다. 참만. 그러나 산제 톱지가 저 대가를 좀 현도 대행님 보세요. 대행님 보세요. 네, 대 답이 이해돼. 다 시고나. 네, 대 라마 소와타나. 다 산제다 심지니까 이해다 하고 놀레스. 대 저요라.
De lama la sovatavna, de lama dang, de pena so dire, de lama la mugu cheya mato, de yang dor dupa pena lama la mugu chene, dini de dun tokerawa, dini so de keche sho dire lama la mugu cheya, dini jinsim gare yore de gitesu.
디 예제나야 다 노차 디 내롱 통로래야 취탐지 내롱 다 내롱 또 거나 탐란이 요레스 나키에 탐란이 요레스 저때 초사 드바장고레스 니니 또딘 라마 또바딘벨 라마 차브 라마 저제테 또바딘 라마텔라 디 산제 음통게 대바고 거레스 데닐 틴데네 데니 산지 다 예때킹님 뭐 ngo제난자 조바치모 제난자 사자치모 내lok된 통로레스 데 마인 박나 키드 랑가 인요를 말했지야 랑가 인요 요 말했지 다데 존나다
So the ground is the Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha, which is the same essence for Buddhas as it is for sentient beings. So all possess, whether Buddhas or sentient beings, we all possess that same ground of awareness, which is the cause of Buddhahood. So the Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha, is the cause of Buddhahood. And the way to realize this ground is through supplication to and reliance upon a guru. And so it is said that if we wish to realize the true nature of the ground, there are really only two methods. One is the gathering of the accumulations and the purification of obscurations. So that's one. And then two, relying on a qualified spiritual teacher who has realization with faith, viewing him to be the Buddha in person, or to seeing him as a true Buddha. And that it is through these two methods, and only these two methods, that we can really come to realize the true essence of our awareness, our Buddha nature, that we can come to realize the meaning of Dzogchen, or the meaning of Mahamudra. There isn't any other method other than these two.
Tene Lama deba yo te teres. Tene do percent bandan kechira. Tene yon bon ton mare. Cholan dan de jolan la karchin chami chen rogol rea. Tere teta chadel res.
Kalchin dang me chik.
Pache karchin chami chen sao. Des.
Enya ngaki lamla ngala.
Ngal tata ni to thol rea. De king ba pa. Samchin nelong mama thong san ni zonte.
So there's some differences with respect to the path of secret mantra, or Vajrayana and Sutrayana. So from the perspective of Tantra, then it is said that, this process of gathering the accumulations and purifying obscurations, and through devotion to the Guru, that the realization of the mind can happen instantaneously. that it's something that can occur, that through the blessings of the Lama, one can come to realize the true nature of the mind. One can realize one's own Buddha nature. But in the Sutrayana, the idea is actually that it takes a very long time. It's an extremely slow and gradual process of purification and gathering accumulation that happens like over the span of one limitless kalpa.
Sanjay Tong de Tene de King Yuntin Chamsan de Tene, Yonso zo Bat Min Tolerina, Ngo Tongwa, Ram Yisarwa, Tene Toje Kuncha to Hendo, Teta Yonzo de Tene Sanjay Saton de Tene de King Bute, Yonzo Shika Yorita. Jung Yuntin Tanji Min Saleriticas.
And so the Buddha nature is said to already be endowed with all of the perfected qualities of awakening. That in particular, there are these three aspects or qualities. So there is the empty essence. The essence is empty. There is the nature or aspect of clarity. And there is all-pervasive, there's the all-pervasive compassion. Or sometimes it's said as the all-pervasive spontaneous presence. And so all of the enlightened qualities are fully developed already, inherent as, the Buddha nature, the basic essence of awareness. So then the next question is, can you speak more about the space-like nature of mind, primordial wisdom, and how it relates to Buddhahood? So, dini de sim namka dawore, dini yeshi sim de rangrik be yeshi, dang namka tabu gi sim de Sanjay Gopang Dang Drawa Gandre Yopa La Tesa Sung Nang. So
Sim Namka Daris
Re Simgi Ngo Namka Tabore Teni Rangre Hiyeshi Ite Chitang Rangre Yeshi Gi Korla Dang Sim Namka Tabu Sim Gingo Namka Tabu Dini De Sanjay Gopang Dang Drawa Gandre Yore. De Gi Korla Tesa Chitang Sungro Nang.
That's a Chitan Rana is here, take the refuge, but the answer, Ran Rife, he said, that Ran Nero, Sam Nero, Tona Ran Rife, he is Serva, Sam Nero, and that what's in Tonsona, needing not to go Zaman and Don de Tio, Shedje Lamni, Jivini, right on my Chuntu is Lafua, the right on my rain, Tini Rain, Sanjay Refuge, but Sam Nero, right now, Ran is Ran Rife, he is. 어때네 대장이 그 이게 또나데 상진도 그거 왔을 내로 또서나 어때네 이 상진도 그거 사리 되네 내로 또비 바로나 셔랍 차와 로는 미스말이 배송 요한이도 내로 또비 바로라 셔랍 차와 로는 미스 셔랍 세트 믹스 요 말이스 내로 또서네 어때지 되네 다 남가 세나 지탄 제바미가 남가인데 남도 같은 남가 세나다 배샤인서와 Sam que ninzi pa mina ta namka da namka lan zi do sa yo marang lan so namka zi ya yo mara watsen zi pa mi ba ta la ta te ta te ninzi zi sa mi ba ta namka da se sam te du sa re.
So the one's own or the self arisen or self-realized primordial awareness or the intrinsic primordial awareness is the true nature of the mind. And so it is realizing that the relationship to Buddhahood is that it is in realizing it that one becomes a Buddha, or that the experience is that of a Buddha, or that one attains Buddhahood. So just like it says, again, in the prayer of Samantabhadra, there's a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions. Realizing this, one is a Buddha, and not realizing this, one is a being wandering in samsara. So it's just a matter of recognition. So recognizing the primordial wisdom, if there is recognition there, if there's understanding, if there's realization, then that is Buddhahood. Then it becomes the experience of the Buddhas. And so also, as Milarepa says, realizing the true nature of the mind, there is no other, perfection of wisdom, or the wisdom, the paramita of wisdom. The paramita, or perfection of wisdom, is none other than realizing the true nature of mind. And so then the space-like nature of mind, the space-like nature of mind, is really kind of it's an example that is speaking to the non-duality of the true nature of mind, because in space there's nothing to grab, there's nothing to grab hold of, there's naturally, in that example, there's no existence of multiplicity or two. There's no dualistic fixation there, nothing to grab onto, nothing to fixate to, nothing to cling. And so that example of space is so apt, because in the realization of the true nature of awareness, there's no fixation.
Nizit meba cha sona tene di gede ganak ta chu to no to pyo mares o te a pyo sare te indu tene ta zo te manu na te sa jin ro ro nga zo te terawa te ta namke tomba te to sona tene namka ro sem ne ro tomba te to sona te sa jin ro ta namka de sa jin ro te yo sar wa nga zo ni du ji me le re pe se zo yo ka zo ro sen de zo mai de ka re da 남가 대부 공제 job 세 요한이도 남가 대부 공제 job 세제 다 여러 와셔데 디 중타만 범도 제 라라모 디 남가 대부 공제 아니야 그래 로지 공바 좀 마디 세라로 로지 팀바도 디 스네고 좀 마송 대종도 와서 일단 냠난치나 태연사르데네 말아르 카르송 센티란테 카르송 오르세나 남가 공제 데라나 로지 남게 충충인스 Logi te namke chunturis. Te namka.
Logi sana?
Jimba. Logi nda mona gura ta ngaso. Logi soli jimba na za jimba re yang te jimba.
Yeah. That's all.
Te logi namke chunturis. Wa te namka korang ke nyamna chi se zong do wa. Wa te namka da wa te siam te ne ro ti ga nyamna chi di na te gom te ja to kyo za wa te ndu. Te jiba zo pa chung te be cha na nam to zo logi nda jimba te ta nam to no be sha re. What's it? Number of this is so Yamnati Garas Chadvina, the number of Nogma is Kuran Pashang, stop on my jazz. Kuran Sam Nerotira, Yamnachi Kores, the Chinin, and I'm got with Pasangi.
So also in the Ganges Mahamudra, there's mention of, like space, which is without boundary or center. And likewise in space, there's no, like the space is not black or white. And so this is like the same with the essence of our own mind, that in the essence itself, that there's never like any taint that occurs from the afflictive emotions or discursive thoughts or the positive and negative karma. That positive and negative karma is only manifests in the form of obscuration and further suffering when there is the experience of dualistic grasping. But in and it is because we do not realize the true nature. But in the essence of the mind itself, there's never any stain. There is no, colors of like white or black, or there is no boundary or center. And so this is when that empty essence, space-like essence of the mind is realized, then that is the cause, or that becomes the experience of Buddhahood. So likewise, Jitsam Milarepa, when giving instructions to his female disciple Pedarbum, he said, you should meditate like space or like the sky. So the name, I have to actually say that. In Tibetan, the word namka, which I've been translating as space, is also the same word for sky. So you could say sky, you could say space. So it makes a little bit more sense maybe in this context to say sky, where Milarepa says you should meditate like the sky. And her response, when she came back to him, she said, it's all fine and good when I meditate like space or I meditate like the sky. But what to do about all of the clouds, all of the clouds that come through and pass by. And then his response was that there is no problem with the clouds, because the clouds are just an expression of the sky. They arise out of the sky and dissolve back into the sky. And so this is like the experience of the nature of mind, in that when there's not grasping, there are thoughts that arise in the mind. There's the whatever like appearances or experience, the phenomena of the mind that arises, but they're as insubstantial as clouds. They're just like passing clouds that arise and pass by and dissolve into the sky or into the space itself. And so when there isn't any grasping there, when it's just when one abides in the recognition of the essence, and is able to experience the arising of thoughts without any grasping, without any fixation, then the thoughts don't do any harm. One is able to sustain the recognition of the essence. And so it is in that way also that the space is this example for the mind, and you can see how it relates to then Buddhahood.
근데 가서 안 차선 건가만 들으려 해서 다 샘제 동반이레스 동반이 샘 남카데브레스 남카데브레스 하나 이나 다 남카데라레스 랍도 야스 요 마레스 어때 나기랑 샘 남카데라스 요레스 랍도 야요 마와 메이다 거잖아 어때 나기랑 샘데 샘다 워세노레스 워세세나 동반데 루레스 데노 야다 요 마르스 동반이 동다 표사와 어쩌탄데다 남카데브테다 상진 저와가로 매 그런 배자진 도 배자진 로아니로와 도 배자진 도로와 티나게 로아 메인지 람도 그래서 도르제 람바르바 나제 람도 도르제 람바르바 도르제 람바르바 제 람바르바 제 람바르바 라시노 어디 배자티나 컨도선 상진 천이 카레 라시노 상진 천이 동반이를 라시노 세 동반이 남카라로와 뜻은 저바디스도와 가서 남카한테 배샤셔라 니도 가서 어쨌든지 어쨌든 저바 요반 and
so also as it suggests in the Ganges Mahamudra that the mind, which is like space, can't be said to be like a specific identifiable thing with an identifiable kind of location. You can't point to space and say, oh, here it is. Because it's just space. And so in the same way, mind's essence is empty. There's the natural radiance, luminosity or clarity of the empty mind, which is also like space. So we can't point to the mind and say, oh, that that's it. It's some entity that exists like in this location. And so this example of the sky-like nature of mind also points to this. Also, Drupon Rinpoche said that he has been reading a text, or he was reading a text recently called the blazing Vajra, or the blazing Vajra of Mount Meru. Yeah, so Dorjee Rira. So the Vajra, the blazing Vajra of Mount Meru. And in it says, what are the characteristics of Buddhahood? What are the characteristics of Buddhahood? The only characteristic is emptiness. And so that is sort of the same in that, this mind, the essence, the true essence of the mind is empty. It is, and the example that is given to describe what that emptiness is like is that of space. So when we say emptiness, this doesn't mean nothingness, like that there is nothing. What it means is that it is empty, it is free from all extremes of elaboration. You cannot say that it exists. You also can't say that it doesn't exist. It is beyond, it transcends designations of existence and non-existence. So then the next question is, I would like to do retreat, but I have a job and not much time. If I wanted to do a weekend retreat using the Tara sadhana, what would be a good schedule, and do you have any suggestions for the practice? So midi samla dego samgyo sare, samla dego samgyo re, ine yang lega yo dang dutsu shera yo mare, dutsu kabore. Dini karsi pena nima ni za pempa nima che la samla dena de droma nyamling chene pena drome gi drup top chena dini de gande de pena de tun gande zo go gre chitang sam de gona dini de sam gande de go gre tang chitang chi sam de yagi korla ge menga chi yona dini de gande sam go gre la kyore so pena tun gande zo go gre la sopa
Chitang tun yeg zo no ba na chusu nga steni ten go zo yong re wa dini chusu demba je ba sa ting sama je ba sa demba san Tevi, teni de saman nanja de sam tong rewa. Teni yang chusu gabas teni dang chong de, chong zo wen teng zong de. Teni chusu ju zai si gan de, ju nin de dao. Teni sido dang teng zi zong de, ria chusu nga chusu dang bo sa ni ba sa teni zong de. Teni dimba je ba sa. Nga ba zhu ba sa go le, nga ba zhu ba sa. Teni yang chusu re sa min song. Jiang Then it gonga tenjit nando. Tenjit na chusu jabjas tatesa. Zoyo no 10 year in the 10 year in the they kong song yabo nyamyo yuja kong song.
So gonda la chusu gate or gadu bardu gonda la chusu
Gotchasa.
Bardu. So Dangpo de la. So he said that if you plan to do a weekend retreat, so like any time you do retreat, then it's important to have 4 sessions. So you do the 4 sessions, you divide your day into 4 sessions, 4 practice sessions. So the first session you do in the morning, at like 5 in the morning, and then that session you can go from 5 till, it depends on the amount of time that you're giving to each session, but like you could go from 5 to say 7 or 8. And then you break for breakfast, and you break for an hour or two or however much time you give yourself. You start your second session, say, for instance, at 9 o'clock, and then you go until, say, 11:30 or 12. And then you break for lunch, and then after lunch you have your third session, so you can begin at 1 or 2 and go until 5 or 6, for instance. And then you take another break, and you rest, drink some tea, and then you have your final session, of the night, say, beginning at maybe 7 or so and going until 7 or 8, or and going until 9 or 10, and so it's in this way you structure your time into 4 sessions of practice. The microphone test yapo to give my ichirang yar zona. Yeah.
The two shira and those on one. What that two shira, not your money, and you have Lumban Bechla Yorwa. In that's a social Yamnasia, the this has shown a yabore. As when you do Becha Kashina, you are a true pandrona, combat doing the true Rogis and the Zamodana, take a pain on Chimbo your race. What then you man in was in some dotum, not a yabore. What then you man in some did you? Thank Nima Gaju Komatazo. 切罗当切那么多，切罗当，咱们现在开始那个，今天秋季草嘛把罗当个，开始那里，咱们这里把罗当是吧？我这是俺当初别个来好多切罗当呀，我这切罗当特别嘛的，推出要嘛的，开始了切样嘛，我在这个嘛让俺当初，我听的他做的提纲的，你们那的，在技术中嘛，你们那区别那看就准嘛了，他你光。 我才去面这个在新巴西上买几块钱，别抢着想那但俺当初听上啊，卡巴尼尔的是的卡巴就大口，就是听你们多看。这个他你妈你去了，可罗当新巴他可以拿什么话罗当他是罗当嘛，对不对？你妈你罗当是吧？我的去年你们俩去通的是，俺当初今天你们俩是要空盘着嘞。 这是偏心没来上头，我这面的是你们来提纲的是把原因在听着起从呢，在空听着这边的啥个来回来，我真的这个说听着你们来起3把张开别要我的是，我3把张听着起，让你们你说就说我当这要我的，真的这当俺当初别个来忙不来看忙不起，这样发生的说的，这个来的是卡头过来没送的家过的，个来没送家样的，就说过去的个来我就话成一样的，所以看不到这。 就说东北的，就看到他娘俩去他那也不是怎么的呢？他娘俩去的做过的，俺当说的，他是想买一把去，做过的那想的就多，的那把是的俺当是想的那是说，大呢是那想说，古下的话，上节今天中午中午的开始中午是日出的、看出的，要这样的是搞把忙不就要他那把上节去了，说买的是。 日出看出忙不在这样，但是家里家家忙不说的话，这哪把上节基本上说嘛的，西罗没太白那有的是，哪把上节开始是做的项目就过去的是，我这上节就点的，让项目用是都种的是，我这种多些天对俺让出提纲的，但是你们天你们你去那的，看出头提纲是你们讲下头边，他就去那的是偏多没人的什么的，空啊种的，种老是种的。 在那里起送的。
So he just wanted to say that, he understands and identifies with you about this feeling of not having that there's enough time. He said, we're all so busy. And it's really difficult to make time for practice in our busy world. But to have the intention to go into retreat and to dedicate oneself to practice is incredibly powerful and virtuous. It is said that having the intention to go into retreat and even taking 7 steps in the direction of a retreat cabin holds a tremendous benefit. There's tremendous virtue just in those 7 steps. And so if you can arrange your time in such a way that you can take, a weekend to do retreat and to really dedicate yourself to practice, that's really extremely beneficial. And you should really make an effort to do it. And the Kagyu masters of the past, of course, when we look at their example, they kind of gave up their entire lives for the sake of they completely abandoned the concerns of this life. They sacrificed their life, for the sake of the Dharma. They completely just giving up all other concerned practice single-pointedly. So of course that example for us is really hard to emulate. We have even a hard time giving up even some of the 8 worldly concerns. So to really, let alone like completely giving up our whole life, to the practice in order to practice the Dharma. But we still can practice to the best of our ability, creating times where we give up, certain attachments, we give up, the other distractions of our life to instead focus single-pointedly on practice and retreat, just as you have this intention to do by, for instance, practicing Tara. So when you do your retreat, then you should really do it full-heartedly in such a way that you're really focused on the practice for that period of time, that you're just focused on Tara, that you're not, doing other things, you're not giving in to other distractions or focusing on other activities, such as the phone. So the phone is a great obstacle to us because it takes, so much of our attention. It's such a source of distraction. So if we create a situation for ourselves to go into retreat for say 2 days, and we give up our phone for those 2 days, and we practice, we really focus on the practice, and then our practice can really increase just in the period of those 2 days. So even just having the intention to practice can be extremely beneficial. And then, to actually follow through with that intention, to the best of our ability, making designated times to practice in retreat or to really focus single-pointedly on our practice is, a tremendous accumulation of merit and is really very powerful. So it is difficult, like we have busy lives, many have to work, and there's a lot of difficulty and hardship, in those responsibilities and all of the activity. And so we also, of course, have to make time to rest. But to the best of our ability, when we do have free time, to focus on practice without distraction, this is really what is meant. It's like a matter of kind of creating a situation of solitude or seclusion, in a kind of a space in which, or a container in which the mind can go inward. So it's really about the mind turning inward. That's actually the meaning of the word Buddhist in Tibetan. So the word Buddhist is Nangpa, which literally means it literally means insider, or we can more loosely translate it as one who goes within or looks within. So that's what it's referring to, is that Buddhist, the Buddhist practice, or a Buddhist is somebody who is looking inward at one's own mind. And so Lord Jigten Sumgön also says that, the Buddhist practice is not just, creating devoting yourself to austere conditions and retreat and enduring hardships, but most importantly, it is taming the mind. It's looking within and taming the mind. So those other practices of austerity, enduring austerities and hardships, those are not so amazing. All traditions, even non-Buddhist traditions, have these practices of austerity and deprivation and hardship. But what is really meaningful, or what is really the essence of Buddhist practice, is to look within and to tame the mind. As it says, to completely tame one's own mind. This is the meaning of the Buddha's teachings. So in any case, it's really wonderful that you have this intention to do some practice in retreat, and you should definitely follow through with it.
等他等于今天中共刚这出康州，他说哪怕上街买的是虚音吧。在今天在这出这样的片头有什么什么这个吧？这买的在这出这样的片头有的，这个地上这些嘛就那么多。可是呢，俺出他的你们就可是呢，空皮要过去了要嘛哇，电把头要嘛哇，这电把嘛头就是出这样的，电把头插起过来。我提前这出这样，这里这片头别些恰当么什么用啥？都他们提给恰当么什么其他接头嘛啦的意思。刚才看的，你们个就恐怕就秘密笼统。戳着大堂着是，但是大的恰当这个嘛的意思，戳着大，穷的，多过咱们送当时穷多过咱们送多些呢，但啥样着，咱们是每年这种是吧？我是说的，真的戳着大堂着是戳着大嘛，但弄个东北的你买那后实际嘛，我弄个东北的大嘛都有嘛的，但是咱恰当么送这个嘛的意思，我这恰当用个的意思，我真的。我在这住多样，这片头有的题，还是那个做，他空皮去找有嘛多少，点把他嘛头，还是住多不多呢？这要不啥的，这这些买进来在这住的呢，我们就开始这住多到片头有了嘛，这样子了。
这里的公他的当不咋
妹妹弄别插破的呀，没办法哇，穷多工当送了当时，戳着大堂着是。穷多过多像的苦什么样的话，什么也不知道有嘛吧？当时每年这样我这么着有了吧？对的，这主要是知道嘛，但没得这样看，做的恰当些是没人的嘞。这个都知道，这玩意恰当些了接头嘛的，但同时知道的用这个的话，实际东北人呐，我这么多同志中多，我同志的，这样也是意思。
So also, what he mentioned that Lord Jigten Sungen said, that it doesn't mean that, staying in secluded places or isolated retreat and practicing austerities doesn't have any benefit. So we shouldn't think like, oh, so it's not necessary to go into retreat. Really we just have to tame our own minds and this isn't so important because actually it is still very important, especially because, we have to develop habituation, and until our practice becomes really stable, then we're really vulnerable to conditions of distraction. So we need to create an environment in which we can really practice single-pointedly so that we develop stability, that we become really stable in our practice. And that means creating an environment where there's not so much distraction and fewer possible objects that, for giving rise to attachment, aversion, and ignorance. So the Kagi masters of the past said that, one should, limiting one's food to, we're going to sort of a secluded place such as a lonely cave, in the wilderness, where, and limiting one's food, and clothing just to one's so that one just has one's basic necessities are taken care of, and not getting caught up in not being in a situation where one becomes caught up in name and reputation and these sort of worldly things, and being in a place where the only companions that you have are like wild animals, because meaning that being in retreat, it means secluding yourself so that you don't interact mainly with other humans, because when we interact with other humans, this becomes a source of so much attachment and aversion in the mind. So when we resort to seclusion and we limit our kind of stimuli so that there's not so much attachment and aversion arising in the mind, then it really gives us an opportunity to gain some stability in our meditation. And so that's really the benefit of the kind of controlled environment of retreat, is to gain, create an environment that helps us to gain stability.
Nahata Gonga.
Oh, So there's also the possibility, so lega la. Oh, right. So and then so when there's if you're working, of course it's difficult to get time for retreat, so you can still practice in such a way that you have sessions that you hold to, like a routine of practice, like one session in the morning, for instance, and one session in the evening, so that your day, is divided into 2 sessions. Even in the midst of your working day, you can, or even, despite the fact that you have to work, you can maybe create time around your work schedule to still have 2 sessions. So. So then the next question is, if possible, could you share a brief explanation of the text that was recited yesterday, the appeasement of sublime bliss, a ritual for sending back the fury of the Dakinis? That's a big question. And in fact, do we have the text somewhere? Appeasement of the Dakinis, sending back the... Yeah, we'll move to another question. We'll come back to that. So then I know that one of the teachings is to rid ourselves of hope and fear, yet it feels positive to hope for a better future for sentient beings, and hope seems to motivate me when I'm feeling down. Can you share some ways to understand these emotions and how to rid ourselves of them? So samsamla kongso de chitang de redo cheya yo mare la gerwa redo yena yang pena samsamla sim shungna de sim pamna dini yang pena da zamboling la be kangel dunga mampo yore dini yang Garcia rewa che yona chikchina pena rewa de drawo o maong pa dini yang de yaga chatna netso yaga chatna dini simchin yang de netso yaga dro sigere simchin gi dewa yang chewa yong sigere dini de reki rewa yona dini de sim tesa dangerewa pena sim ma pamne dini de sim ma pamya pinto yore so yin dini di samlo tangne redo pangya pangoa gi jumsen ha koya gi chidu dang redo pangya gi tapshi gande yoba dilate se shiro nang
Tenghe ya wosi. Jidang azo redo wang se jin duwa. Nyamlen tongpo won de redo de sang bang gun duwa. Wa te chi tene.
Oh, di kaka chere. Kaka de jela la kian che.
tene de jidang redo se nyamlen tongpo won da ze reba to hwa ti ma ji song hyo ra nga zo di chao ze xin bo nyamlen chi di na ze za yar sang ji to ya ma ngen song ya redo ma ji se ze yero wa. Tere ze ne ne redo se de da redo ma bu chi na nga zo be sam sa reba ji reba to drop ma to tere dunga ben do sam sa de mu je ni yo na par so ze yi xie xi da mu ya ji to hwa ji de la ze redo dunga je yu re wo de yin di redo chung na de nga zo di sa sem te di sa lo lo da yong zi de wa le ka yin na ze drop na redo ma bu won le ka kan ya drop tu ma re ka se na ya ko ta ne ru xin de hu na ze ri gi ma re sa ma de ru ze yong ge wa ga so to pa redo te ten rin da cha de yo re te ni na da ze nga ro nga zo kar chi do zam na nge sam na ta dan zam lang de gang ge ma bo ji ze ti ki ze ya bo cha ya so so cham ni ge chang jo sem to zo ya bo gom wa cham ni chang jo sem to zo gom ji nyam na te zo ya bo ze chi ti gang ze 我把这么的上面写的用啊，他听住这，上路当提纲，但听住起那个如果的上听住怕，我把也不他是那么大很好起，我听住期间的这是，这片头面来什么都没打这。忙把这绕不小子在一起，小子买的上哪在一起呢？对，那天有嘛咯？下天另外做上的刚给提把系统嘛多，这里就是你们俩讲下，你们俩讲前两天的提讲在我忙那强你个提的是讲，他们在一起天天偏给的什么多咯
？So this abandoning of hope and fear is really actually something that is mainly within the context of a kind of high level of practice, meaning that, when we are practicing, for instance, Mahamudra, then there's no hope or fear, or sometimes it's translated as expectation or doubt, meaning that one lets go of attachment even to the idea of enlightenment. Like there's no, hope to, attain the higher states of Buddhahood, and no fear of being a sentient being. So it is kind of a high level of practice. And then there's another type of hope or expectation, which or hope and fear, doubt and expectation that is more worldly. That, say, for instance, we have all these hopes and expectations, and we want things to work out well for us. We want things to go a certain way, and then we're very attached to the outcome. We have this expectation, and then things don't go our way, or they don't turn out as we had hoped, and then there's suffering because there was hope there was expectation. So to diminish, hope and fear in that context, and to be sort of more relaxed with whatever arises, whatever the circumstances are, it diminishes our suffering, to lighten kind of the grasping of expectation and fear. And so then also sometimes it can create, hope and fear can create an obstacle to getting things done or accomplishing activities, because we have all this hesitation and doubt because of our expectation or wanting things to turn out perfectly or to go well. And we think, oh, wait, but should I do this? If I do this, then maybe actually this will happen. And so maybe it's not okay. And maybe, and there's all this hesitation, which then gets in the way of, accomplishing our objectives. And then as far as what you mentioned about feeling discouraged sometimes about the world, and hope being something that helps you to, feel less depressed about, suffering or the state of the world, he said, this is, when this is channeled into like a productive way of practicing. So say, for instance, by meditating with love and compassion, on love and compassion for all sentient beings, and then dedication, really focusing on the purity of our aspiration prayers and dedication, so that then with a completely pure intention and goodwill, then whatever virtue or whatever practice that we engage in, when we dedicate that to the welfare and benefit and happiness of all sentient beings, then there's power in that aspiration prayer. And so instead to focus on that, instead of focusing on what the future might hold, so like in the future, oh no, maybe this will happen, maybe it will get worse, maybe this, or maybe it will be wonderful, but to not get in a place of hope or fear with that kind of projection of outcome, that a much more kind of productive way to relate with it is through dedication and pure aspiration prayers. And so
that's what I know.
No.
So the Chadam Munsunk, you think Chujek Rewa Toba, Nona Gayor. Inayang Chatan Chuk talk Rewa to Ugoyor. When a Sanjok Sen Rinpoche Nalchem short, Sonic Rewa Rewa Tani, Tene manangkata nyam semjin tanji sanjin le kompang le kosan ni rewa le ya. Tera tene sa tambo ne pa sanjo samba tanji sa niba atop san ni rewa le ya. Niba la atop san niba tanji samba atop san ni rewa ore. Ina di rewa te kare zo hien de jala soba chagba chanzo ne chagba chawa ugu zi hie yore de. Chagba chawa tendrak chagba na chogo yore. Ina ya tato sanje sab kapsa tene rewa te pango re mato ne kap te rewa ugu le. Tabu de rewa ten ni ole re.
Niyore. So when it comes to, this hope and doubt, or hope and fear, so there's two types, right? There's kind of like wholesome and unwholesome on the relative level. So like when we have a bunch of expectation and doubt or hope and fear that's bound up in the three poisons of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, and that is really really based on worldly concerns, like, hope for the positive worldly concerns and fear regarding the undesirable, worldly concerns, then that is the type of hope and fear that we want to abandon. But when it comes to the Dharma, like actually hope, as you mentioned, is very beneficial, until, as was said, like you get to a really high level, like basically like Buddhahood. Because the hope, for instance, may I give rise to the mind of bodhicitta, may I develop bodhicitta, or may all sentient beings attain the state of Buddhahood. This is a positive, wholesome wish, a wholesome hope. Or even, may the, great beings, who are already on the stages of awakening, may they continue to progress on the path to awakening, like those bodhisattvas on the first bodhisattva bhumi. May they progress to the second bhumi. And those who are on the second, may they progress to the third, and so on and so forth. So with the kind of hopes that are also connected with aspiration in the Dharma, Dharma-related hopes, there is some subtle attachment there. And even at a very refined or higher level, there's still a very subtle level of attachment. And it isn't really until one reaches the stage of Buddhahood that, that there's no trace of, attachment until one reaches the stages of awakening. And so in this sense, there is, there's benefit and still, kind of having hope and fear, hope for, all of the positive qualities and the fear, with regard to like accumulating non-virtue and so forth. So there are two types. Okay. So then we have this question about. Is it time? Oh, okay. So I'm going to go to a different one, maybe, and then. So maybe how about this one? What is the best practice to engage in that will help me rest in the true nature of my mind? Dene de nune simgi ngo ne gona de gom go samna tempo cha go samna dene nyamne yaksho gare yore.
Ole. Jizu melare ve zezondo ro. Te 가르송도 세나 심지안남라 닝제공 세랑 탐보트 라노와 심지안남 닝제공 세다 탐보 잠니지 창조 센터 여부 공고서 참바 닝제 창조 셈스 잠니지 창조 잠니게 할 때는 창조 셈제게라와 와트서 여부 공고래 정도 심지안남라 닝제공 와트네 te rangli tukje chenpo goms te rangti idam gombore se jenase rong goms watene jenase gom ta ji dan la te gom du se lu na tong fan nang jian song da na la rang ji ma rob cha lang na nang jia wo de se wo gom go zong wa watene rangli tukje chenpo goms wate jibar zabe lama gom song ro jibar zabe lama gom se na 다 소소 자베 라마 뭐 자베 라마 바 남바다 세도지 창라 곰나리 가시오기나 티네 어데 신함 신중사 도다 라마 차도로 ngazo ni de Lama na yo rangjung namje tongdam la teba ni je doje che ze yo yang de sem ne lo to ya de teba ni ne to res wa zu zong ra ten du te zawe Lama te gom wa de dong ba ni la yuren sen zong de da xi wa de dong ba ni le sen na da sem ne lo gang yan na chi de ze da sem ne lo so so sem ngo ma yin ba da din de kyo sa de da ngazo ni du ta me xi ba ze xia jian duo ta me xi ba sen ju ne ngazo nam to je yo wa wa ti ke nam de nyam na chi wa ten ru da se chi ju ne ngazo xi ba de ga ma yin ba chi de nam to je xi da na da ze ti gang want ma shuo ran da chi na de ne sem ne lo te ra jang de su chu ma bu go sa ma re te wa ten ru nyam na chi de je le ngo ba ja yi to de je le ngo ba de sa ma la de je le ngo ba ja to wa de chi ten ru nyam na chi na de ne zen dong a sang me nyam na tu su tung tung ze lo gong tu ya wa ten ru jun nyam na je be ta de nga zo cha xiang de xiu ge ya lang de tung zhe gong jin je dang cham ni je de zo de is gong tu de xiu ge tu zo ji dian zong zong wa de ka shi na xiu ge cham ni je gong ni kan ne pa che ge re se chi chang zhou chen de gong tu na ka shi na za ti do
ning kai to
ning ka ni la de ne pa che ge re se xiu ge nga se cha dang mo som je song ni ka ge wa zhou na ne pa xi ra yo ma re se 쇼기 당보제 참니제 되서 겁나 자티 동바레 스티나라 참니제 창조 센터 소나 되네 니가게 바카드롬 누바체게레스 어디제 지니는 다 쇼기다 토란티 디시아가 랑범도나 상제 줌된데 상제야 토란 상제레스 테니 디치남랑 와서 냠나지 콤펜로라 펜게레존 어디니 와다다다디 쇼기다 제 수수 시라미나 쇼기다 라평 쳐서제 테마존나 간마 카시 곰 통통지 간망아 곰나 저리 되소미나 됐고 아라라 되소 간망아 지보라 그러가서 와 텐드인다 지나 제진 야고 멜렌다 선도로
So Jetsun Milarepa said that, first one can meditate on compassion, or generating love and compassion for sentient beings, and giving rise to the mind of awakening, or bodhicitta. And so it is bodhicitta arises from love and compassion. So first we cultivate love and compassion, and then from that, eventually it evolves into the generation of bodhicitta. Then based on that, we can give rise to bodhicitta. And then having generated bodhicitta, love and compassion and bodhicitta, arise in the form of your yidam deity. He says specifically in the form of Chenrezig. And meditating on yourself in the form of Chenrezig or any yidam deity, you do so without any grasping. So the deity clearly appears, but it is without any substantial nature, like a clear rainbow in the sky. So everything, all of the attributes of the deity appear clearly, but in essence it is empty. It is the nature of emptiness. And then at your crown, you then meditate on your guru, your root guru. So your who appears in the form of Vajradhara. So you can visualize that your guru is there above your crown in the form of Vajradhara, or the aspect of Vajradhara. But his essence is that of your own kind root guru. And so as it also says in the Uttara Tantra, the way to realize the essence of the mind is through faith, or it is the quality of faith that leads to the realization of the Buddha nature, the mind's true essence. And then following that, meditating on your root guru, because that is the means to generate realization of the true nature, you meditate for a long time, or however long you can, on emptiness, recognizing the nature of your mind without becoming distracted. But without, even in more simple terms, we refer to it often as ordinary awareness. So ordinary awareness means that you identify, or you recognize that essence of that quality of awareness without becoming distracted. Even though maybe thoughts will arise, you don't fall under the power of those thoughts. So you sustain the attention, on the essence of the awareness despite whatever might continue to arise in the mind, whatever thoughts that may arise. And if you lose the awareness, you come back to it. And then at the end, you seal with a dedication. So these are the progressive stages, or the way to practice that is given here by Milarepa. If you for whatever period of time, then you can practice in that way, for the time that you have. And it's best to practice in the morning, first thing in the morning. And Lord Jigten Sungen says that first thing in the morning, when we generate love and compassion, then whatever virtue that we engage in throughout the day is energized by that intention of love and compassion that has been cultivated in the morning, that the virtue becomes more powerful. And if we don't, so if we don't generate love and compassion first thing, even if we do, have some virtue that's accumulated throughout the day, it's less powerful than it is if we start our day with that pure intention, if we start our day generating the mind of compassion. So that's one reason. And so because it becomes like fertile ground, like a fresh slate, or kind of, like the earth is, an empty space of earth in which, we plant the seed for, the virtue that we will then practice throughout the day. And then the other reason is because since it is said that the Buddha attained enlightenment, at that hour, where like with the first kind of light of dawn, that there's really great blessing, in that at that time of day. And so it's really good to start every day, with the practice. And if you have an hour, that's best. If you don't have an hour, then for however long you have, at least you can manage to get 5 minutes. So even if you can do 5 minutes, that's okay. That's good. And so with this, these instructions that come from Milarepa that he just went through, so there are these different stages. So the main one you can focus on or give the most time to in this is the practice of Mahamudra. Or the meditation as the main practice. The other stages you can do like you can do for a shorter duration. So you go through the stages, and then the main time that you allot your practice to is that of Mahamudra. And so this concludes our question and answer session. And Drupon Rinpoche just would like to say that we're all, have such an incredible opportunity here to be in the presence of and to receive teachings from His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche. And, so knowing how wonderful, our merit is, like what an incredible ripening of merit that is, then to really do our best to put his precious instructions into practice. We should really all make an effort to do that to the best of our ability.
A big thank you to Drupon Rinchen Dorjee and Sherab Pasang Rinpoche for this wonderful, enlightening hour and a half. We'll have a 30-minute break. We'll be back, I guess, now at 4 o'clock. And Khenpo Tenzin will continue with Q&A from 4 till 5. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, welcome to the second half of our Q&A during this event, and this will be Khenpo Tenzin will be leading us for the next hour.
Dage temba da sunje je don la bo jen ro para sunje la do so Tashi dele the Rinpoche song macho chabdu manana sem tara de ranzong nimi hilas the got sem sejite mangbo ri dang jigris tene kunzang molana na yechik lam ni drewe ni zedi yechik zedi semla ko yori tela sem de la mambo ando kam jing dos tate ngak chorang sala tam ti trawat tugin.
So Rinpoche gave Khenpo La the instruction to open up a discussion, that we can all participate in. So as it is, dini de kari de sholoka gapare de kyadumananga de nibas.
Page number 5.
Page number 5. So on page number 5 of the 7 supplications to Tara, as it says, goddess of non-dual mind. So this non-dual mind that is spoken of here, then Rinpoche wanted us to reflect upon and then discuss, is this non-dual mind one or is it many? And then also in the prayer to Kuntu Zangpo, it says the prayer of Kuntu Zangpo, it says there is a single ground, yet 2 paths and 2 fruitions. And so that single ground, is it one or is it many? And so this is the question that he would like to open the discussion with.
Ta tenga ke chorans la trawa traga yori. Teni chorans ke te sem ke nyamlin la samno tang ne lin jaw shos. Tan rike jaya ke tara tusu mudawa. Ina ya sem te yet jikpa rikha samna tambo jikpa rewe sidi ri sena samna lakpa cha hos. Yang chorans ke o sem se jite mangbo tama rikha jik ri mudaw samna yang tikap sunge lakpa chogos de lakpa cha hos.
So we don't have, a lot of time to actually discuss or explain, why we may come to the conclusion that we come to, but really reflecting on it, thinking of it from the perspective of practice, your practice, then he would like you to raise your hand if you think when he says, do you think that the mind is one? Or raise your hand if you think that the mind is many.
Semte ngaranzo tsama semte jikparwe. You translate.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said that in English. So do you raise your hand if you think the mind is one?
Oh yeah. Oh that's okay. Then so
raise your hand if you think the mind is many.
Oh, wonderful. That chocho tsama ke Rinpoche ke song de yabo go saris. Pegabo chong tujiche.
So you all understand Rinpoche's teachings very well. Thank you.
Then Tanga Kichoransola Tinso no Chichine Tessaji Lagins.
But he's going to talk about it just a little bit, just to refresh our memories.
Sem Rangjong Sedu Rangjong Sena Mok Zochu Jap Dewa Mayimba. Koranjin kesem ngo te la kuyoris.
So first, so it is. So the first line here actually is. So it seems like it's maybe missing a word in Tibetan and English, but Simrang Jong Nime Yeshila. Oh no, it's at the bottom. That's why. So mind that is self-arisen, non-dual wisdom, primordial wisdom. So the self-arisen part here is referring to the fact that the mind is not something that is created. It's not. It is naturally arisen. It is like naturally self-arisen.
Tenga zo gom jan de hakko ko yore namjun hakko to ko yomare.
And this is something that we know through meditation. We don't understand it ordinarily.
Gom jan de tene soso ji chorwala ni kokde bana yin yore yena ni ngune mare kola sarcha jo yore ta tela sem ranjong sejite la koyores.
So when we meditate, sometimes there's a feeling of like kind of like we're falling into a sleep state, but it's not really sleep, and there's a clarity that is there. There's a clarity, and that is the self-arisen mind.
Sarcha de la hyokpa nankala nima yo mare karma yo mare dawa yo mare timba yo mare ina mumba yang yo mare ta te nangin sarcha te pendoris.
And so it's like in the very early morning, at the crack of dawn, there's nothing in the sky. There's no sun. There's no moon, there's no clouds, there's no stars. It's just there's no longer darkness. It's just this very fresh, kind of luminous sky, expanse of the sky.
Tene te nga choke ngo higo yore. Tene te ngo hina tene nga cho ta sanje che lamla rokyores.
And so this is what that mind is like. And so it needs to be recognized. If we recognize it, then we go onto the path of Buddhahood, of awakening.
Te ngo mahina teni nga chong khowalan chamdore. Teni tedi nga chola monkey mind, crazy monkey mind yores.
If we don't recognize it, then we go in the direction or onto the path of samsara, and we have, the experience of, for instance, the crazy monkey mind.
Ngachola njuma ngama yo marite ina monkey crazy monkey ndo chano yore.
So we don't have a tail, but we really do have minds that are often like crazy monkeys.
Gomja du zoju hira maja koranyi kamane.
And so when we meditate, we don't have to fabricate anything. There's no fabrication or we don't have to contrive anything. We just rest in what is like the natural awareness.
Tene kunda zambona yetjik lam ni se du tene crazy monkey mind te nyam den rosona koala chamde tela lam jigs lam yimba te teni gomja teni samjo ngo sarik chamde chongne den rude teni nyangde lam landros lam ni stela.
And so as it says in the prayer of Samantabhadra, there's a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions. So these two paths and two fruitions are that of the crazy monkey mind, which it gives us the fruition of samsara, or the path of the like luminous essence, the clarity of the essence of intrinsic awareness, the fruit of which is nirvana.
다 samsara zenarin koalan rodang dinga cha ko yorwa de ina nyande lan ro se du yet lamni se du di yato de kakala pan ro ndo ko yo mare kan se yato la chal la byung ko yore yato la chal la byung batela de ni nyande ka lam lan ro se ko yore dewe na ngarang so malare pa songri garchin bo chiga songso pa sanje yin ma zarsi 소속 생을 쳇두 라고도 뒤스도 이토를 잘라요 봐. 다테 데 거랑 참아. 되니 상 제야 그다 많이 요레스.
So in this way, samsara and nirvana share a single ground. So it's just a matter of the approach or the path. There are two paths. That is the point where there's a differentiation. But the ground is the same. So it either, is a matter of recognition or lack of recognition. So recognition going in the direction of awakening and non-recognition going in the direction of further samsara. So just as Milarepa has said, and Garchen Rinpoche also says time and time again, that we should not look for Buddhahood outside of ourselves. Instead, we should look, do not seek the Buddha outside. Instead, look directly at the mind itself. And so this then is the foundation for awakening.
Semla chorta se de wo gong teni ma chi chene tenda chi ayo marda lulu wena ma chu bangal go teri teni gom se de yang gom la gom se ne yang su chi de teni teri mes tima chek so gom wa chang ga ha ko tes kala khaboira.
And so when we look look within, we look at the mind, it isn't something that is like a, kind of a, like an effort of like holding the breath and really seeking, where is the mind, but it's relaxed. So a relaxed looking. And the meditation is also a process of habituation. So it isn't something that we can expect to develop just by like doing it once, but we have to meditate again and again.
Oh, that chance ke sem yetik pari do son that te pe aboris that drawing goes on.
So it was really wonderful that everybody sort of unanimously decided that the mind is one. So there's good understanding in this room, and we can, with that, we can begin with, the continuation of the questions. Yeah, I don't. Oh, here they are. Yeah, thank you. So the next question was, what advice do you have for senior practitioners that get discouraged because they do not see much progress in their practice? Dini, you understand, right?
Clear.
Dini loma kashe lo mambo nyamlin cheken yorwa. Dini shara pena yarji shara drogi omare torwa yona. Dini ngato simma shungya ki chidu advice kariyo.
Tate chorang la pache ngajar mi patari yarjen rondo ko yori. Chorang hindong na yin ri hindong de kale ko yarjen ro ko yori lamsang thongko mari. De yina dene lo jyo ni hyo sumjyo. De so jin den hindong da chama yarga lo mas jegri.
So he said, the fact that you think this, that you haven't progressed much or don't see much progress, is actually a sign of your humility, your lack of pride. You actually have progressed. It's a slow and gradual process. It's just like the development of a tree, the maturation of a tree that takes, a long time to grow, and eventually, first they're kind of like an extension of different branches that start to grow off, and then the leaf, there's the different branches with their different leaves and so forth. But this is a process, a tree, like you don't necessarily see the big change. It happens gradually, but then after 10 or 20 years, if you think back to how it was before, you can really see that there was a big difference.
Tene Lama la soaya bota suso ke Lama yora tera soaya bota tetsom yomares.
And then, as far as you said, how do we not become discouraged, or what do you advise? He said, supplicate your guru, like really supplicate from your heart. And then the next question is, Garchen Rinpoche mentioned doubt in Dharma can be an obstacle. How can one dispel this kind of doubt?
Really, ndo tang nga ni te sia de la cheparche yore te ina ta nge ling ne de currents na the tetsom se ba the marik pa ni yong ku yu zang de rum ba che ke te sung ba te me ge very sorry.
Oh, de la kyore gogta Rinpoche gi garsi detsom yona chula detsom yona deni barje yong gere song deni de detsom yang pangya gi chidu de detsom wangla ma shorya gi chidu gande che gogre.
Oh, tetsom wang horde.
Wangla ma shorwa.
Oh, really. Ta nga zo la tawa ni ro chi yichi gor ta zo chi yichi. Ma zo deba la do deba sen zo yichi de tog de yore. Le jumde si teng ne malabari san yichi gor. De kunzo tar de wena de yang ta pa tawa la ku yore. Dondang ge yang ta pa tawa de chakchin ganga manana. Je yang mesem lad chula tu son. Tene de tawa ka ta chu go yore. Je yang mesam Tate yin sarigo marigo san lo tendrama ta jikto de jene tangane jene o ngarta Lama te tendra song song tene nelong ne de teri tetsomi san tene song de le chiwi go.
So mainly to since, as Rinpoche said, the cause of doubts is really ignorance, and we, the more that we build our qualities of faith and confidence, trust, for instance, in the teachings of karma, cause, and effect, really to the point where we're very convinced, we're sure that karma, cause, and effect are infallible. So this is the perfection of the view of the relative truth in terms of this confidence or faith in the infallibility of karma, cause, and effect. And then with respect to confidence in the ultimate truth, or with respect to the ultimate truth, then it is, as is sort of explained in the Ganges Mahamudra, that, really without thinking of anything, decisively settling, on the point of the true essence itself, without doubt, without thinking, oh, is it like this or is it not like this, but really having a kind of definitive settling of the, on what that recognition, saying, oh yes, this is what my root guru has pointed to. This is what he has taught me, and then there's confidence that develops based on that understanding of the pith instructions in your own experience.
Tene jumre la yichi te perna chorang ke jamse je gom jamba chemi gomra ti jine chorang chowa karendo chowa tin dewa ma to donga yomares jamba chemi gomba te jori Soa dewa den driveri. Then that jundel tesom sagoya ke madoa.
So, for instance, in really understanding or developing confidence in karma, cause, and effect, in your own experience, when you meditate on immeasurable love, so after you've meditated on immeasurable love, how do you feel? When you look and you ask yourself that question, it's quite certain that the feeling is one that is pleasant, that you feel happy. And so when you apply that to cause and effect, the cause is immeasurable love. And the result is the bliss or the happiness that you feel. So you can see just in that example the truth of karma, cause and effect.
동당 공간에 빼나 취탐제 제와만도 각과만도 산데니 징가다 트라바리샤 산데 타충윤데 데니 징낭 요마레 희낭 요마레 남자 요마레 어때니 다트서 차대요레스
And then with respect to the ultimate truth, when there is the recognition that from the perspective of the relative truth, all phenomena are unborn, that they are unborn and they are unceasing. And there's this recognition that is without any fear, without fear or hesitation, then that is the confidence or faith in the ultimate truth. And then the next question is, please elaborate on the antidotes for our afflictions such as anger, attachment, jealousy, etc. that Rinchen Rinpoche briefly mentioned. So the pena digi ko Rinpoche digi ko la mambo song so so gande yin pa kuma song yin pena sherang ducha sherang thado gi yimbo la gi ko la tes sung dele tes mangsa sung no
hedang gnimbo de hedang gnimbo chungchong jo baby na hipu na hi 부나 이게 해당 근임보 충충 대가르스나 해당의 중 따야들이 해당의 야보리면도 해당 근임보 야휴대 해당 젠드 해당 담보 진시 되게 해당 지성 하고지 대하고서도 되는 해당의 코랑라 따버다 해당의 나라 생 요도디 디캅스 추랑 파 해당나 따지 그 로지 요라 디 로드 베 시보 요리 시보 휴 베나 로 시보지 현텔 따데 코란 잉게치 셈데 초와데 시보 차가 요리 시보 메조라 따나 셈데라 시보 히라미라 디나이기 시테니 해당 로데 따나 베 시보 사보 데네 갈레 클티 해당데 디 로 사보데나 마 템로그리 템드 다 해당된 그 로바체 주랑게 서차 가서 로그 따라 서차 클래리티 대야 야젠로 해당 가성 요 말에 네 주랑 해당네 조사스.
So he said there are different approaches in terms of the antidotes to the afflictive emotions. The first one is kind of like how you teach a small child. Like by pointing out, or reminding yourself, anger is not good. Anger is a fault. I don't want to give rise to anger. And so you have that kind of approach of really reasoning with yourself and abandoning anger. But the best method, if we can practice in this way, is that of mindful awareness, meaning that when the anger arises, then we look directly at the essence of that anger. So when that anger is arisen in the mind, if we apply mindful awareness and look directly at the anger, we'll see that the mind has become very clear, very vivid. and there's like a clarity or luminosity there, like a very, very strong, vivid luminosity. And then when we keep our awareness on that clarity aspect that has arisen in the mind based on that anger, due to the energy of the anger, and we hold that attention there, then what will happen is gradually the anger itself will just dissolve. It will fade and disappear. And then we'll just be left with the clear, vivid luminosity of awareness itself. And so then anger has become a companion, to our practice, because it's helped us to intensify the clarity of our own awareness. And this is called bringing anger onto the path. So then the next question, given that Rinpoche has already fully realized...
Sorry, I forgot. Chado de nimbo de jisirang jiare. Namju jisirang ji. Tene yang tsamre yongding mal jigla jung mambo yo na yang yongding jig yore ta. Di yongding de la hyukjia donang zhe na. Tene jisirang toya la pink yore. Tene da sangha da de jena tene de power dang control de dala ri sam de zo chi da hi ye chi se da hi gang ngarang so lab so o koran so ngne sanje ning bo yore da si ko so sanje ning bo yore de non chor mang bo zo no kare na sina o ko so chor ya si sanje ning bo de ha ma wo ne chor ya ning ji sam de ning ji ji de malare bak toni chorang ka toni to na chorang ngne ning ji ji gri se ya there is malare ba.
So then, since you also mentioned jealousy, generally the antidote for jealousy is rejoicing. So rejoicing is a great practice to purify the affliction of jealousy, and also to shift our focus. I mean, what really helps with rejoicing is that instead of focusing on other people's faults, to focus on their qualities, because there are, many faults that people might have, but even if it's just like one quality that we can identify and really placing our interest or our focus on the qualities that person has, then that helps to support the mind of rejoicing. And then from the perspective of secret mantra, then the way to practice is by seeing, everyone as dakas and dakinis. And this comes back to what Rinpoche was asking us to reflect upon, in the prayer of Kunten Zangpo, as it says there's a single ground. So recognizing that we all share this single ground, and so therefore all beings are dakas and dakinis. And then really the essence of that person is the Buddha nature. And then sometimes there might be a doubt or a thought that arises, and we say, well, if this person or these people have the Buddha nature, why is their behavior so mistaken? And the reason for that is because even though they have the Buddha nature, it's covered over by delusion. Because of the presence of delusion, it isn't seen. And so their negative actions are actually a source of compassion. So we can, instead of reacting with affliction, we can actually give rise to compassion. In fact, as Milarepa says, if one realizes the truth of emptiness, then with that there's true compassion. There's compassion for beings who do not realize that nature. Should he tell us a short story?
Paji yoris. Kola Dromoji yoris. The Padala Tropoji yoris. Musam yora. The Tropo de O Tachurang Dromora yoris. Tela Candando laris. Oh, that Dromo de la Pe Jumambodos. Namka Karmana yiri laris. Teni Tropo de Glan. Oh, Tena Teni Churang de Pa. Dromo de Yog Garachi Yog Mens. Labde. Oh, Yondin Jigrang Yoris. Te Nimana Yiridas. Teni Yog Tokumados. That dead Gisirans. Draw.
So there was a boy who had a girlfriend. And then this boy had another friend. And his friend asked him, "Oh, you have a girlfriend now. What is she like?" And he said, "Oh, she has so many faults, like as many faults as there are stars in the sky, right?" And so he said, "Really? Well, then why don't you dump her? Why don't you get rid of her?" And he said, "Well, she has one quality, and that quality is like the brilliance of the sun." So that's like rejoicing, right? Focusing on the one quality. Okay. So then another question is, so given that Rinpoche has already fully realized Namgyalma, how does us doing this practice extend his life? So that's the first part of this question. So Rinpoche Namgyalma gingo drup sariyarwala. Dini kong yang te tokpa yot sarwayana te Namgyalma gingo drup sarwayana. Dini ngato Namgyalma nyamlin chene kong yang te kutse ringwa gande zo tokere.
Oh. Tane kalin kana jagan hako. Te tenare Rinpoche ke te Namgyalma drup sar Rinpoche la kanga yone ngatsok te la ropa jayan ro maris. Ngarang tso tene Rinpoche ka loma yinzang tene ngatsok Rinpoche la magupa jeba non-chur jeba toso pa daya chita jiki yoris. Ten toso daya sona tene ngatsok takpar ngatsok ta Rinpoche ni pa la ta nipo, sim ta nipo. Tene ngarang zo deba zama. Te tanda chadu, tene Rinpoche ke sinlab de rangin tapar ngazo la tsar yonga yoris.
So, Rinpoche, having realized Namgyalma already, it's not like we need to help him through our Namgyalma practice. So it's not that we're actually like helping him with our practice, but we as Rinpoche's disciples, we're actually purifying, in our, like in relation to him, all of our kind of errors, the forms of disrespect, or mistakes that we have made are being purified, through our practice. And so as those are purified, we, like our connection with Rinpoche is strengthened. Our like hearts become we become closer to him. And so then as our faith is increased through the practice, then we have more connection to Rinpoche's blessings, so that creates the causes for us to always receive or experience or be connected with his blessings.
Ta ngarang su semla chen dalang nga chun nonter maje na yang jiwa tsara mambo la te dripa yor te namja ma 또나 디드바데 파 당로요 미로요데 데니 오 라마당 럼보체 당아랑 그 셈데 찍바리다 산테니 하고 데니 디게 realization 데니 야르제로 드라요데 데니 오 라마당 nga semni darwa mi pa namyang khamadara tak paranyam do san te ha ko there is
and so even if we haven't made, big like mistakes in this life, we have certainly engaged in all sorts of errors and non-virtues, throughout limitless lifetimes, in samsara, since beginningless time. So there are many obscurations that we have accumulated or developed over many lifetimes. And so Namgyalma is a very powerful practice for purifying those obscurations. And through the practice, we can come to realize that the deity and Rinpoche's mind and our own mind are not separate; they're not different. And so, in this way, then we come to understand or come to the stability of the recognition that the Lama's mind and our own mind are inseparable. And that we are always together with him.
So Rinpoche's long life lahdoa. Rinpoche's long life Rinpoche around the semnang la. Junrimbo yoga. There is.
And so really the real meaning, like we say, this is for Rinpoche's long life, but where his long life is really being, extended is in our mind, in that mind connection, the longevity of that connection. So actually then the second part of this question is, when we do this practice for others, in what way does it help them? How do we affect someone else's karma? Dini tesa drawa do mishimba la yang pena o nga mishimba jin shimba la pingo nam gyama nyamlin chego kongso pento yagi chidu dini mishimba la gande pento gare de nyamlin chene dini kongso gi le ngatso gande dak tu gare gande ropa che gare
Tade pernas churang chipo longba chingna sacha chile yo churang no trobo mi ne tena churang hinang chimbo chi yo na hinang yo na ta yamna nje yo re tela yamna che simjin to ke nga sa rogri yang na chapa yo re tan churang he dena tene churang la trobo ya bo chi thogna te churang ki hinang suma chong ro gwa ti na yi tarang ngin song tang ko lan chan de simji to so la dunga mambo yode tene namja ma ge zong nga at pa ndong yon de ne tene te kran so la ti dunga de chong ro go yore te da nyam de tene so so ke ta drpa da ta yon de te so so be ke nyam do so compare ro chik there that mambo your there there's
so for example if if we are go all by ourselves without any companion, without any friend, to a really scary place where there are demons and harmful spirits, or maybe they're like thieves and bandits, or frightening animals. If we meet, in this scary place, a friend, or a companion, then it becomes of tremendous comfort, and our fear diminishes. And so this is how the power of this practice of Namgyalma. It has the power to bring kind of alleviate the suffering of beings in samsara, in the 3 lower realms, and those, many sentient beings who are suffering in all sorts of different situations. And then also, so there is that power that it has, through the practice. And then also, as we practice, then we purify our own obscurations. So our obscurations and negativities decline or diminishes, and as we become more purified and our practice increases, our realization increases, then we're also more able to benefit others.
Zunga ndonde da zunga de yedang ke language in hore yedang thamjek language ke yoro teni nga sacha chigla chimbaina sacha teni inji ke hinkin majel thona teni nga ke inji ke hakona te nge matala roba chiro sacha kawan ro gore ke ja trya yore teni mate ka ngala roba china ngala pingrawa tina yang mate yang masimba zambo jinji gorwa tina yingaran so chudrum chamala jamba da ninje gore ngaso le jamba da ninje yona ngaso sinjin tamje ka robo cha de yore teni koranzo la pinga yore ngaran so zunga to.
So also the mantra, the language of mantra is also like the language of the yidam. And so there's this, when we sort of speak that language or recite the mantra, it's like, for instance, if we go to a place, where we, and then we encounter somebody, and then if that person happens to know English, and we meet that person, and then they can, we ask for their help, and then they're able to help us, because they speak our language, they're able to help through that common understanding of the language. But that person, in order to be of help, they also have to have like pure intentions. They have to have a good intention. And so when we practice, it is necessary to have a pure mind, pure intention of love and compassion. And then we become like a companion to all sentient beings. So the next question, can you give some advice or encouragement for someone serving a Dharma center? La lega chicken yena lechi yona deni kongso pena advice tang sim mashungya gichidu chiksuno na
chutso sijite Dharma mandala
Dharma center.
Dharma center is like a Dharma,
like a mandala.
Like means it's real Dharma mandala chadir. Then the dambo ne soso ke chuso si de yapori san tisam no te hyokchimbo na gogre te karchimbo char. Then nipa te la ta chuso le lega le du ngarang ka sunam go sakyu si tisam no tangur. Sanje chomden de karpa mambo la sunang tsosa da tina yingarang tsosa kyu sam soso ichichi ti gangla tene parar de chimba trok chang yuri sam tene de kandaba changri perna phopa ji tuna parar de chimba trok kandaba changri jimba sutram zupa zunru something hirap chama changde yor phopa ji tuna there are some done jete karchimbori.
So first of all, so since the Dharma Center is a Dharma mandala, it is important, like very important, is to think that the Dharma Center is good, to have a pure view with respect to the Dharma Center, and to have confidence in the fact that your work is your service to the Dharma Center is an accumulation of merit, that you're accumulating merit. Just as the Buddha, accumulated merit for countless, or for many kalpas, he gathered the accumulations and purified obscurations. And then with every activity that you do, in service to the Dharma Center, you really try to apply, for instance, the practice of the 6 perfections, which can be complete, really, in every activity. So, for instance, if you are even just washing a bowl, you can have all 6 perfections present as part of that act of washing the bowl. Generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. So actually, maybe if you just only wash like all the dishes at a Dharma center, that alone could bring you to the state of Buddhahood.
Narando ina lekari otte lekari samde tani tangcheya dukudowa.
And also when we, if we have depending on our perception, if we have the perception of it as being a chore or being work, then it becomes difficult.
Ta sonam sakyu sande tani kalle chungdos.
And when we're like, oh, I have an opportunity here to accumulate merit, then there's less difficulty and it becomes less difficult.
Lama namtar lo de pe pinto yor. Telo ba naro pala. Charang ke suna mambo sagore sondwa. Te tin chana tani yang lekat sukable chungir. Berna.
And so, for instance, in the examples of, the great masters of the past and the life stories of the masters, for instance, when Dilopa told Naropa that he needed to accumulate a lot of merit, then Naropa willingly took this on, with great joy, all this endeavor to accumulate merit.
Awesome.
And then the next one. Shamatha and Vipashyana, can you explain?
Shamatha sena sem hivar ne. Sem hivar ne bala tambo lulu je lupo lulu zupo lulu. Teni sem lulu jendrode hine kan go zokuyor. Lamtong sedu teni sem sacha de lo goyor. Sem sacha de tambo go kan zokuyor sina. O de hedangri hedangjit. O den do chari da se tambo go ji zokudo wa. De de lamtong go zo yong.
So shamatha, or calm abiding, is a process of calming the mind through meditative concentration. First, through relaxation, relaxing first the body, so the body is completely relaxed and at ease, and then the mind through relaxing the mind, so that the mind is relaxed and at ease. And when we establish a peaceful, single-pointed abiding in meditative concentration, that is shamatha. And then vipassana, or insight, is more connected with the clarity aspect of the awareness. So that first begins when we start to, with wisdom, recognize, for instance, oh, that's anger. That's, we see the mind. We see that that's anger, or oh, that's desire arising. So that recognition is where insight or vipassana begins.
Tambo shine tang lamtong ni hine ngun gomna yapoyor. Ngaran sotara namto rakpa mambo yotsan seng tin cha te yarje tang. Tin cha de yarje tan tini lamtong gom de sarcha te yang tini sarcha da tin cha ni tini hila sungder yong jimatna yongris. Ni chitang gom sejite andra chi gomnya te chak tunjin rawo ri mato ke gomne te rangin ke che yongyor. aso yabo jentabo gomdang so yabo hako tana jirtini gom terangin ke je yongir ti gom tengne gom yabo yor pena ngaso nyarsa na mandro kambal te blanket yabo gonro tin nyarsa na pena teni lulu je ta nyarsa na ni na tin rangin ge yongdo ti na yi teni gom de tana jen lusam lu da sem sama lula bana teni gom rangin ge je yong
So it's important to begin with shamatha before we practice vipassana. So first, because shamatha creates the conditions for the arising of vipassana. So first we have to quiet and still the mind. And in quieting and stilling the mind, then that allows for the clarity or the natural wisdom of the mind to arise or to shine forth. And then eventually one can experience the indivisibility of calm abiding and insight, or shamatha and vipassana. And so it is something that also develops, when we create times, or sessions in which to meditate, and then we develop a strength of meditation. Eventually, meditation just happens on its own. It arises naturally. We sit in the posture, we relax the body and mind, and we drop into meditation just naturally. So it's kind of like when we go to sleep, at night we get in bed, we put the blankets, cover ourselves with blankets, and then just naturally sleep arrives. We fall into sleep. And so it's the same thing that happens with meditation, that eventually we develop a propensity for it, so that when we create the conditions, in which the body and mind are relaxed, and, in meditation, it just happens all on its own.
Hine karma ni som lai sem lulu jine tabdu te pe dabo jagor karchi moyor ti teni yarje tangol matok nyama chegla hine zin chimpo che thagumare hine karma som rawla churang lulu wen ne thamna tel churang dabo yabo ja mantu na jondar chi karchi bore tene lamtong se semla sarcha de jiendu sarcha chungchung ji jina de dapo jana tene jimas a jachimbo chaga yore naroba ke jam nigima ke song yore chorang le yi de meta na yiris meta fire spark dela teni yang ta heng ro tang me pu heng mambo yana teni di hita mechimbo yi ke mechimbo cha ro res so pe karchimbo re chungchong la tongchong ma jire teni semra yo mare
So even just a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes of relaxing into a state of calm abiding, we should really value, we should really cherish. And then the more we do that, we allow for those moments of relaxing into calm abiding, that becomes training. Every time we do it, it becomes training. And the propensity becomes stronger and stronger. Likewise with insight or vipassana, even just a little bit of insight, a little bit of clarity arises in the mind, to really value and cherish that, and to return to it again and again. Then the propensity for that becomes stronger and stronger. So Naropa's wife, Niguma, said that primordial awareness, is like a fire spark, like a spark of fire. Even if it's just like recognized for in a little bit or for a moment, if you return to it again and again, it becomes like adding fuel or kindling to that fire. And eventually then that fire grows stronger and stronger. It becomes a blazing fire of primordial awareness. And so we should not be concerned if our experiences of meditation seem to be, kind of short-lived or brief, because those, we don't need to worry about that, because that is every time that there's experience of practice, even for a short period of time, it's really building the strength of our practice.
Tada yedam yamitaga tasu jablo la me chimbo chindo me rauch. Ti me te kani yongers na tambo ngarang so na gom jate kamasum la tini ti ki yishi ro chi na ti yishi te tini jablo te yamita ka jablo me chimbo dal ta tena chan ro res.
So, for instance, the Yedam Yamantaka, like behind him, there's a blazing kind of sphere of primordial wisdom, fire, or there's like a blazing fire behind him. So if we, or surrounding him, so if we have even just like 3 minutes of meditation, eventually the more that we nurture those small moments, eventually our wisdom can grow into, that ring of, or sphere of primordial wisdom fire.
Draw question. Still we have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
4 minutes.
So when I was in retreat, I dreamt of the Tibetan Ah symbol floating in the sky. Can you explain what that means? Thank you. Dini de samla de bekabla, mi de samla de bekabla, de Ah che de milam nangla, de namka tongpa ki chila, Ah che tongyore milam nangla. Dini di ki dunda gande yore.
Chitang da samlan duk bukabso malang ganda tang na yang sam de da nyamlin chi bukabso malang ganda tang na yang yapuri sangore
Yapore sambo.
sama yapuri sangore teni chitang malang yapo toso soso ge dripa de pa da do yore ta ndo ta re ani sijitene ta yege tamje ke chod churba tongba ni ke chungdong yin song ko yore den den namkha na yoba te slow ke namkha te chuji yin ke peri mine chuji yin te den sem knalo lo yore ta te nangdong songjong rao de yapori sangores.
So in general, when you're in retreat, it's good to regard all of the dreams that you have as positive, as favorable dreams or favorable signs. And so these good dreams are a sign of the purification at work. So it means that our obscurations are being purified. And the syllable is is supreme among all the Tibetan letters or syllables, and it represents emptiness. And the fact that you saw it in the sky, so the sky is the outer example of the Dharma Dhatu, or the outer Dharma Dhatu, which is also the same essence of the mind itself. And so through this dream, or seeing the syllable in the midst, in space, then it is a good sign of the indivisibility of appearance and emptiness.
Oh, yeah, time's out, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so please open this yellow book. We do dedicate our dedication. The page 56, okay?
Page 56.
Maho ngomsar sanje nawan dae da yesu jobo doje jembo da yonda jemban de je do na la sanje janse ba men gor je gor de je ngon za pa de me ba ye de wa jin je ja ve shen gan da da je de ne zen be jer ma da je wa jin je bar ma je bar Tere jine nande yandon joy de ge da ge malan da baye George sanje jansen dam je ge me de bar jin je la de zo da ya da ban zan ya Avan Bodhanaya Zova Janjo Senjo Rinpoche Ma Je Banan Je Jorje Je Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Gone gonda bevajo. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to Khenpo Tenzin for his wise guidance this afternoon. This is the last session for today, and the event ends tomorrow. So we welcome you back, especially those of you from afar, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Arizona time, and the program will finish at noon tomorrow. Thanks so much.